You're probably earning more money today than you were 5 years ago. Your job title sounds more impressive, your paycheck is bigger, and maybe you even moved into a nicer neighborhood. From the outside, everything about your life suggests that you're winning. Friends see the upgrades. Family assumes you've made it. Social media paints a polished picture that seems to confirm it all. But behind closed doors, a very different story is often unfolding. Instead of feeling secure, many people feel more trapped, more stressed, and more financially exhausted than they did back when they were practically broke. When you are young and earning very little, being broke feels normal. It's expected. It's almost a rite of passage. You accept it as part of the process of building your life. But when you are earning a professional salary, driving a premium car, and wearing clothes that signal success, feeling broke becomes something entirely different. It becomes isolating. You cannot complain to your friends because they think you are thriving. You cannot tell your family you are struggling because you are supposed to be the successful one now. So you carry the burden quietly. Every day you maintain the image, playing a role that looks impressive from the outside but feels heavy on the inside. This is one of the defining paradoxes of the modern middle class. Over time, we have been conditioned to believe that as our income rises, our lifestyle must immediately rise with it. Society teaches us that success is something visual, something that needs to be displayed. It becomes an aesthetic. The moment you receive a promotion, the expectation quietly appears. Trade in your reliable old car for something with a luxury badge. When your salary increases, the modest apartment suddenly feels inappropriate, and you start browsing listings in the trendy part of town. Weekend habits change. Vacations become more expensive. Even the restaurants you visit start to reflect your new level. On paper, these upgrades seem reasonable. After all, you worked hard for them, but what most people fail to realize is that this entire system is carefully structured like a trap. Instead of using your hard-earned income to buy freedom, you start using it to rent an image of stability. You spend real money to create the appearance that everything is under control. In other words, you sacrifice genuine peace of mind in exchange for looking like you have it. The most dangerous part is how normal this behavior appears. Everyone around you seems to be doing the same thing. You look at your peers and think, they drive that car and live in that neighborhood, so I should be able to afford it too. What you rarely see is the reality behind the scenes. Many of those same people are quietly dealing with the exact same pressures: credit card balances, rising payments, and constant financial anxiety. Meanwhile, some of the most durable wealth builders in history have always operated very differently. They understood something that most people overlook. Visible status is not the same thing as actual security. Instead of upgrading their lives every time their income increased, they kept their lifestyles surprisingly simple. They protected their capital from social pressure. They treated restraint not as something embarrassing, but as a strategic advantage. This approach isn't about being cheap or denying yourself happiness. It is a serious defensive strategy against the machinery of modern consumer culture. The basic law of wealth is surprisingly simple. Wealth is rarely what you can see. More often, wealth is what remains unspent. The car you didn't buy, the expensive dinner you skipped, the luxury watch that stayed in the store window. Those decisions rarely look impressive in the moment, but they quietly accumulate into something incredibly powerful. Real wealth is the silent buildup of resources that give you options. It gives you flexibility. Most importantly, it gives you autonomy over your own time. When you spend money trying to look wealthy, you destroy the very capital required to actually become wealthy. You confuse the performance of success with the reality of security. And the modern economy benefits enormously from this confusion. Entire industries are built around the deeply human desire to feel respected and admired by others. Consumer culture thrives when you feel slightly inadequate. That small sense of insecurity makes it easier to justify financing a lifestyle that keeps you permanently tied to a paycheck. If you are heavily in debt while trying to look successful, you become a very predictable worker. You cannot take big risks. You cannot step away from a job to explore something new. You cannot start a business without fear. Your expensive possessions quietly turn into prison guards. But the cost of looking successful goes far beyond the monthly payment on a credit card or car loan. It slowly seeps into your psychology. It influences your career decisions. It even shapes your relationships. Most importantly, it strips away your leverage and forces you to make decisions from a place of quiet desperation rather than confidence. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this modern illusion. We're going to examine the 5 quiet costs of trying to look successful, the hidden taxes that millions of people pay every single month without even realizing it. These costs rarely show up on a bank statement, but they quietly shape the trajectory of your entire life. We'll explore how chasing the aesthetic of success can slowly destroy your financial margin, limit your professional courage, and trap you in a cycle of endless lifestyle maintenance. More importantly, we'll talk about why letting go of the need to look successful may be one of the most powerful financial decisions you can ever make. If you have ever felt like you are doing everything right yet still struggling to move forward, the answer might not lie in earning more money. Instead, it may lie in recognizing the invisible costs attached to the image you are trying to maintain. And the first of those quiet costs is something that will never appear in your budget spreadsheet or your banking app. Your accountant will never mention it, yet it quietly shapes the direction of your entire career. That cost is the loss of your professional courage. To understand why this happens, we first need to define what professional courage actually means. It isn't about being aggressive in meetings or dominating conversations in a boardroom. True professional courage is something much simpler and far more powerful. It is the ability to say no when something is unreasonable. It is the confidence to negotiate without fear. And most importantly, it is the freedom to walk away from a bad situation when necessary. Unfortunately, the moment your income increases, society begins pushing you toward a lifestyle that slowly removes this freedom. Almost immediately, subtle pressure appears to upgrade your life. You lease the luxury European sedan. You move into the modern high-rise apartment with rooftop amenities and a sleek lobby. Your wardrobe changes to match your new corporate title. At first, it all feels justified. You tell yourself that you deserve these rewards after years of hard work and long hours. But what is actually happening behind the scenes is something far more consequential. Every one of those upgrades raises your baseline cost of living. Your monthly burn rate quietly climbs higher and higher. Expenses that once seemed optional slowly become permanent obligations. And this is where the problem begins. In the professional world, leverage is simple. It comes down to one question: who needs whom more? If your employer needs your skills more than you need their paycheck, you have leverage. You can negotiate. You can push back when something feels unfair. You can make decisions based on your long-term interests instead of short-term survival. But when your lifestyle requires $5,000 or $6,000 a month just to keep the illusion intact, that leverage disappears almost overnight. Suddenly, every paycheck becomes essential. You cannot afford a gap. Even a single missed month would create chaos. Imagine a typical Monday morning meeting at work. Your manager makes an unreasonable demand. Maybe they ask you to work through the weekend again, even though it's already the 3rd week in a row. Maybe they cross a line in the way they speak to you. If your financial life were simple, if you had little debt and low monthly obligations, you might calmly set a boundary. You could look them in the eye and say, "No, I can't do that," or "That approach doesn't work for me." You would have the confidence to defend your time and your dignity. But that's not what happens. Instead, you swallow the frustration. You nod politely. You force a smile and agree to sacrifice another weekend with your family. The decision isn't really about the task at all. It's about the quiet calculator running in the back of your mind. You remember the $700 car payment that drafts automatically every month. You remember the rent for your luxury apartment due on the 1st. You remember the credit card balance from your last aesthetically perfect vacation. In that brief moment of hesitation, the truth becomes painfully clear. You are not negotiating from strength. You are negotiating from dependence. And the most tragic part of this dynamic is that the very objects meant to symbolize your success are the things limiting your freedom. The expensive car parked in the company lot doesn't represent independence. In many ways, it's the exact reason you feel forced to tolerate situations you would otherwise reject. Large corporations understand this dynamic far better than most employees realize. Even if it's never spoken openly, there's an unspoken awareness that a workforce buried under lifestyle obligations becomes a highly compliant workforce. When people are financially stretched to their limits, they rarely challenge authority. They avoid risks. They accept stagnant wages and toxic environments because the fear of losing their income is simply too overwhelming. The result is a workforce that works harder than ever, but feels less powerful than before. This loss of professional courage doesn't just affect your daily interactions. Over time, it shapes the entire direction of your career. Real wealth is rarely built by playing it safe inside the same cubicle for 40 years. In many cases, it comes from calculated risks. It might mean accepting a temporary pay cut to join a promising startup. It might mean stepping away from a stable role to learn a new skill that could double your income. Sometimes it means launching a business idea you've been thinking about for years. But risk requires breathing room. Risk requires a financial safety net. If every dollar you earn is already committed to maintaining a lifestyle designed to look impressive, that safety net disappears. Suddenly, even small career changes feel impossible. The leasing office doesn't care about your entrepreneurial ambitions. The bank doesn't care that your startup idea might succeed 5 years from now. They only care about the next payment. So you stay where you are. You stay in the predictable role. You keep showing up every Monday, and gradually the dreams you once had begin to fade into the background. Now, compare that situation to someone who makes a completely different choice. Imagine a worker who deliberately keeps their lifestyle modest. They drive a reliable 10-year-old car that's fully paid off. They live in a small, affordable apartment. Instead of upgrading their lifestyle with every raise, they save aggressively. From the outside, they don't look extraordinary. Walking down the street, no one would assume they are wealthy. In fact, some people might assume they are struggling or falling behind. But internally, this person holds a powerful advantage. Because their expenses are low, they possess the ultimate professional weapon, the power of no. If their workplace becomes toxic, they can leave. If a better opportunity appears, they can take the risk. If a manager crosses a line, they can calmly push back without fear. Their decisions are guided by long-term strategy rather than short-term survival. While others feel trapped by their lifestyle, this person has options. And options are the true currency of wealth. This difference highlights a fundamental divide between the mindset of the middle class and the mindset of long-term wealth builders. The middle class often trades future options for immediate objects. They buy the bigger driveway, the leather interior, and the brand name accessories that signal progress. But those purchases come with a hidden cost: autonomy. Wealth builders operate differently. They prioritize flexibility. They protect their freedom of movement. They understand that peace of mind is infinitely more valuable than the fleeting approval of strangers at a traffic light. If you want to reclaim your professional courage, the solution isn't complicated, but it does require a shift in perspective. You must start viewing every recurring expense through a different lens. Every time you commit to a larger mortgage, a more expensive car, or another luxury subscription, you are voluntarily tightening the grip those obligations have on your life. Each one is a small pair of golden handcuffs. Little by little, they reduce your ability to say no. True financial power doesn't look flashy. It's quiet and often invisible. It's the confidence that comes from knowing that if your job disappeared tomorrow, your family would still be secure. It's the calm certainty that you can walk away from bad situations without panic. That confidence cannot be purchased at a luxury dealership or inside a high-end boutique. It's built slowly through discipline, restraint, and the willingness to ignore social pressure. You build it by keeping your overhead low, by resisting the urge to impress people who rarely think about you, and by protecting the one asset that matters more than anything else, your freedom to choose. But losing your professional courage is only the first hidden cost of trying to look successful. The second cost is even more dangerous because it quietly destroys the financial cushion that protects you from life's inevitable surprises. It's what happens when your financial margin completely disappears. It's what happens when your financial margin completely disappears. To understand why this is so dangerous, it helps to borrow a concept from engineering. When engineers design something critical, like a bridge, they never build it to handle exactly the amount of weight they expect it to carry. If a bridge is expected to support 10,000 tons, it is often built to support far more, sometimes 5 times that amount. The difference between the expected load and the maximum capacity is called the margin of safety. That margin exists to absorb the unexpected. A sudden storm, heavier traffic than predicted, or stress over time won't immediately cause the structure to collapse because extra strength was built into the system. Your personal finances work exactly the same way. Financial margin is the space between what you earn and what you absolutely need to survive. It's the cushion that absorbs life's surprises. When your income is significantly higher than your expenses, you have room to breathe. Unexpected problems stay manageable. But when your goal becomes looking successful rather than being financially secure, that margin disappears. The aesthetic of success is expensive, and maintaining it usually requires spending right up to the edge of your income. You see this pattern everywhere. Someone earning $50,000 a year often ends up spending $49,000. When that same person receives a big promotion and begins earning $120,000, the margin rarely grows. Instead, their lifestyle expands to match the new income. The car gets upgraded. The apartment becomes larger. Vacations become more luxurious. Now they are earning $120,000, but spending $118,000. The numbers look bigger, but the breathing room is exactly the same, almost none. From the outside, this person appears to have mastered adulthood. Their photos show beautiful vacations. Their home looks impressive. Their social life seems exciting and full. Colleagues assume they must be financially secure, but internally, the reality often feels completely different. When your financial margin is close to zero, everyday life becomes a quiet mental balancing act. If you've ever lived this way, you recognize the strange paradox that comes with it. You might pull into the parking lot of a premium grocery store driving a $50,000 vehicle, yet as you walk through the aisles, you are doing nervous math in your head. You add up prices before placing items in your cart. You check your banking app while standing in the checkout line. You hope the total doesn't trigger an overdraft before your next paycheck arrives on Friday. You are surrounded by symbols of success, yet internally you feel constant tension. When financial margin disappears, life's normal unpredictability becomes much more dangerous. Problems that should be small suddenly feel enormous. Because the truth is, unexpected events are guaranteed. Cars break down, roofs leak, medical bills appear out of nowhere, companies restructure and lay people off. These events aren't rare exceptions. Over a long enough timeline, they happen to everyone. What determines whether they become minor inconveniences or major crises is your margin. If you have a thick cushion of savings sitting quietly in a bank account, a flat tire on a Tuesday morning is just that, a minor inconvenience. You call a tow truck, pay the $500 for a replacement, and continue with your week. Your stress level barely changes. But if you've spent every extra dollar maintaining the image of success, the same flat tire suddenly becomes a financial emergency. That $500 repair triggers a chain reaction. You put it on a credit card that is already close to its limit. You start calculating which bill might have to wait this month. You call your spouse and begin negotiating what expenses can be delayed. Something small becomes overwhelming. This is the hidden danger of eliminating your margin. Without realizing it, You remove the shock absorbers that protect your financial life. Every bump in the road is felt directly. Over time, the real cost of this situation isn't just financial, it's psychological. When you operate at 99% capacity all the time, your nervous system never truly relaxes. There's always a low-level hum of anxiety in the background. You might not consciously notice it during the day, but it shows up in subtle ways.